Thank you for joining us today. This is the first in a three-part series on the MICIP process in the platform and focuses on the Assess Needs process. Presenting are Dr. Terry Nugent, MICIP lead, and Mr. Tom Johnson, MICIP co-product owner.
Good afternoon, everyone. We're excited to be able to share with you the walkthrough of the MICIP platform. And we're going to start by jumping out to our training site. This is available to all of you. And if you have not connected to the training site, please contact your local ISD and they will provide you with the address, the site address, the username, the password, and the training manual for this. So we are what I fondly call is the front door of MICIP. You will know that you are in training because of the icon in the upper left-hand corner. We have two logins here. One, says My Login, and that is for State of Michigan employees to click that button and use their single sign-on. But for all of you, you're going to be using My Launchpad and logging in through this method. So I have already logged in today. So all I need to do, because I will remember my password, is just go ahead and click the screen. So now, maybe twice, there we go. So here we are. This is would be your dashboard. So it would give you, your district, an opportunity to see at a glance what is happening right now in your continuous improvement planning process. So right now, since we're in a training environment, there are no active goals right now. So we're in progress. And you can see here of all the progresses that have been started in various status stages. And so we're going to go through today and show you how to go through all the way to what we call a challenge statement. You'll also notice at the bottom of this screen are your most recent assist plans. And so they will be preloaded for you as a reference as you go through creating your plans. So we're going to start off with data discovery. And we can do a data discovery in a couple of ways. One is we can create a custom data set, which then asks us to figure out what data objects we want to pull in to, for our team to review to determine what will be the student needs. We also have the ability to use the Explore data templates. And these data templates are really based under three categories: academic, and you'll see here, these are the state approved standards. We have non-academic, and this is our area for whole child. And then there's systems. And this really is a very important feature to look at systems data, because it may be that it's not necessarily an academic or non-academic issue, but it could be a systems problem that we need to review, explore. So for today's purposes, we're going to create a custom data story. So when you start your data story, you want to start with a title that gives you an idea of what it is that you're trying to look at. And so we're going to look at today this whole idea of student engagement for our district. And then we might have a little discussion under that engagement and looking at this. And we're going to really look at most likely school culture and climate, because right now, being in the pandemic, our learning environments are very different. This is going to be our focus. And so we start then with the beginning of a data story, and it all starts with data. So we're going to create a data set. And so by clicking the Add Data button, you will be given two options. You can go to My School Data, or you can upload locally owned data. In the release 1.3, which hopefully will come at the end of February of 2021, we will have a third option, which will be the Data Hub. But for today's demonstration, we have these two, and we're going to start with My School Data. And we're going to come through, and you're going to notice that these categories look very similar. And that is because right now, I'm actually in My School Data website and pulling from your data. And we're here, we can look at any sort of report that exists, we can, like in My School Data, which we are in, you can pull for your buildings. You can look at different types of settings under assessment programs. You can drill down to a grade. All the things that you were able to do before exists here. So for today's purposes in the training site, we are using Grand Ledge Public Schools public facing data. And so that this is the data we will play with and will be in the training environment for until it gets changed, which won't be for a very long time. So you can see here we have our report that we want to do, and we're going to go in and we're going to give it a more meaningful name. So this is looking at ELA MSTEP data. And I recommend that you do change the title of your data set so that it's more meaningful to you, so that your team will remember what is that your what this data tile is showing you. And so you can see it loads automatically. There is no more data mining. This is pre-populated data that you can call very easily. We're going to go back and we're going to call up some math data and same sort of thing and bring it in here. And this is, I'm going to change the name to Math MSTEP. If one can type, there we go. And then add to the data set. Quick, easy, saves so much time. You can go back, you can view this data very easily. This is a view data object button. It pops you back in. Notice that it opens a new tab, which is very important because then with all the data objects you will be bringing in today, you would have different tabs. So you could literally set up those, if you pull them apart and put them on individual monitors, you can look at them at a glance. So that makes it very, very easy. We also, in this case, we may have local data that we want to bring in. So we're going to look for some data in our selective tiles. And because we're looking at student engagement, we probably want to start with, I want to look at some data on rigor. So we're going to call this student rigor survey. And we can give it a summary. We can give it a where did it originate from. So right now we're going to call it other. And we have an acceptance. This is to let you know that MICIP works on data at a building and district level. It never takes in student data. And this little prompt here reminds you of that. So now we're going to pop into that district upload student rigor, and it's going to load. And then we can show you what that looks like. So you can, again, a new tab is going to open. And here it is displayed in our system. So you could see that automatically. Since we are working remotely these days, anyone in your continuous improvement team would have access to this and would be able to manipulate this. You can work remotely in this environment. So we're going to bring in, let's do one more. And let's look at our parents' survey, and we have this one. Oh, no, let's do the student engagement survey. That's since that's our topic of today. So we're going to bring that in. Now our team is looking at this going, I think we're pretty good. This is a good start for us to have some good conversation about what are we seeing with our student data. Just want to note that a real nice little feature that we have put into this is that if you want to give an order to your data sets, you can switch things around. And so that if that's a way for your team to kind of prioritize data, they can do that. So we're going to use this little accordion symbol. You see it as a minus sign now. And with the plus sign, it brings it all up. And now we can begin to look at our process for discovering what is going on with our needs for our students. And so we start with this idea of an initial data story. So what are these data objects telling you? You're looking at these 4 objects and looking at them together and making some conclusions. So for today's purposes, we've discovered that there is a disconnect to learning. We definitely see that. We see say low performance, in math and in, oh goodness, and ELA. Again, I'm not going to emulate a continuous improvement team, just to give you a sense of what this looks like and feels like. Then we come down and we begin to look at the initial initiative inventory and analysis. And this is to give us an idea of what is presently happening in our district. What are we doing around this idea of student engagement? And so to help teams prompt them to have this rich discussion, we have a few questions that we'd like you to consider here. So are we looking at our district mission? Are we connecting to all students in terms of engagement? What about our personnel? Are we getting the outcomes that we expect? What about the financial commitment to this and so forth? So when you're in this modal and you want this up and your team is having this discussion, then what we want to do in this is really capture that conversation that's happening. And so we may want to say that something to the effect that personnel have been trained in distant learning, but is struggling with engaging students, as an example. So if I'm in here and I say this response, notice what happens when we go back to the original screen. It is captured here so that you can bounce back and forth from that modal to capture the conversation that, that you were having. And then we look at the gap analysis to say, what is the reality of what's happening now, but what is the desired state? Why aren't they connecting very well? And the gap exists because of not well prepared for a distant learning environment. Sorry. For both staff and students. All right. And then finally, we want to go in and now we know like what is our initial discovery? What is it that's currently happening? Why we think that we have this gap between what we're currently doing and what we would like to do. And then we have a summary of our story, and we'll go here and we have some questions again to help prompt your team. And what is it that we should be considering here? So not to read them all, but like if we look at the first one, what strengths have been uncovered? What growth edges have been identified? What learner needs are going unmet and not being met adequately, sufficiently? And so you can go through here and say, oh, another question is about funding across the programs. And so let's focus on the funding. So what we have realized is that that our distant learning environments were not completely supported, and students were not engaging in the learning. All right. Again, we want to save the response and we can move on. Now, I want to bring your attention right now to what we call the blue bar. That is the bottom navigational bar, and it will help you know when to move on to the next section. So believe it or not, you have just completed what used to be the comprehensive needs assessment. And this is now what has taken the place of that. So we want rich discussion and really dig deep into the what of what students need. So I'm going to show you how that bar works. So I'm going to take this off. And did you notice how the blue bar changed? I'm going to put that back on. Keep your eyes on the blue bar. And there you go. So now you can go through and it says, okay, you've answered your questions. Let's go on analyzing in determining what is the root cause for our student needs. So here you have an opportunity to really look at 3 options for a root cause analysis tool. You can use the 5 whys, and by clicking on either of these 3 boxes, you will get a short summary to help your team identify which tool you would like to use. We have the fishbone, which is here. That is another cause and effect tool that you could use, or in your district may use other types of root cause tools, which is wonderful. And you can decide to add that. For today's demonstration, we're going to use a 5 why, and we're actually going to go through it rather quickly. So we hit the root cause analysis because our blue bar said that we were ready to move on. And so now we know what our data story is about and that we're about to look at root cause and our little review of the 5 whys. You'll notice that the blue bar is prompting us to complete the root cause analysis before continuing. So when we look at this, we can come in and explain that, so our distant learning environments were not completely supported and the students were not engaged in learning. Okay, so why is that happening? Well, one is that district was not able to provide connectivity to all homes. Well, that was one situation. So, well, why was that? Oops, sorry. We're going to go back and edit this. I meant to go on to do one more why. Okay, so there we go. So they were not able to provide connectivity to all homes. That is because the infrastructure was not available at the time students went into quarantine or went into virtual learning. Great. And that seems to be the why things are happening. We just didn't have the capabilities. Then we can hit finish analysis. If you were to go on and answer maybe 3 or 4 more whys this was happening, and you realize, you know what, I don't think we've really zoomed in on what it is. I think we may need to add evidence to our story. There's a section here where there's a button you can add evidence to and go back through your data story and really look at that new data object or objects and continue exploring until you really have defined the what. So here our blue bar is prompting us saying that we can move on to the challenge statement. And so you can see here now, we have our district data story and that the idea of district learning environments were not completely supported and students were not engaged. And then we have the root cause, and that was the infrastructure was not available at the time when all students went into virtual learning. And so our challenge now will become providing connectivity to all students in our district. And that's where we're going to really look and start when creating our goal with our plan. And so we're going to then go into, we're going to save this. And by the way, I'd like to recommend, we have an auto save feature in MICIP that will save every 15 seconds. So if you're like me as a former building administrator and get called away because of a need going on, if it shuts down or you get lost, it will put you right back in where you left off. So we're going to hit define goal. And now I'm going to allow my team member, Tom Johnson, to come in and continue the goals section.